Have you ever felt jealous, but if you were really honest, underneath it was resentment? Like maybe on the surface you were saying like you were fine, you were trying to be cool, you were trying to be understanding, you were trying to be supportive, you're trying so hard not to be quote unquote too much, but underneath all of that you were hurt. Something didn't feel good, something felt off, something inside of you needed care, honesty, support. Right? And instead of saying that, instead of asking for what you needed, instead of honoring your own discomfort, you pushed it down. Maybe you smiled. You swallowed it. You tried to be cool. And then later, jealousy showed up carrying all of it. Whoo! Been there. If it sounds familiar, this episode's for you because jealousy is often a lot less about what your partner is doing and more about what you haven't allowed yourself to say, what you haven't given yourself permission to need, or what you haven't allowed yourself to honor. And so today we're going to talk about that, okay? Welcome back to Nope, We're Not Monogamous. I'm Alicia Payne, your non-monogamous coach, and I help people build more secure, honest, connected, juicy relationships without abandoning themselves in the process. And today I want to talk to you about one of the biggest things that fuels jealousy but gets overlooked all the time. Boundaries. Everybody's favorite. Right? Because jealousy is not always about another person. A lot of the time, it gets louder when your needs aren't being voiced, when your limits aren't being honored, when you're saying yes, when your body and your nervous system is actually like no. You're betraying yourself to keep the peace. You're trying to be okay with something that doesn't actually feel okay. And so many people miss this. They think jealousy means they need to become less emotional, less needy, less reactive, less affected, or stop whatever's happening. But sometimes jealousy is just asking you to be more honest. It's be more honest about like what you need, what hurts, more honest about what pace actually works for you. So if you've ever struggled to know what's okay to ask for, if you've ever felt guilty setting boundaries, if you've ever worried that speaking up would make you controlling or difficult or hard to love, I wrote this one for you. I'm recording this one for you. So let's get into it. All right. One of the biggest shifts that I help clients make is this. Jealousy is information. Okay. Jealousy is not a verdict or a fact or truth. It's not proof that your relationship is doomed. It's not automatic evidence that your partner's doing something wrong. It's definitely not proof that you're bad or broken or suck at non-monogamy. A lot of the time, jealousy is the signals from your body trying to get your attention. It's saying, hey, love, something here doesn't feel okay for me. Something doesn't feel right. And that doesn't automatically mean danger. Like it doesn't mean there's like a red flag, sirens. It doesn't mean there's a betrayal. It doesn't always mean someone needs to be the villain. Sometimes it just means that you need clarity or reassurance, or you need more honesty, or you need more time to adjust, or you need to admit that you're not actually okay with what's happening right now. Like maybe your partner says they're going to go on a date and you smile and you're like, have fun, babe, while your stomach is falling through the floor. Right. And that not because you're like toxic, but part of you needed more communication beforehand and you never said it. Or maybe they start getting closer with someone and suddenly you feel reactive and needy and clingy and all the words people use to shame themselves. But underneath that, maybe you just need a little more reassurance that your connection still matters. Or maybe everything is moving faster than your nervous system can hold. It's expanding your capacity past what you're actually capable of. But instead of slowing down and honoring that, you're trying to keep up. You're like stumbling along so that you don't seem insecure or controlling or too much. And that's the kind of stuff the sensations of jealousy are often pointing to. And this is where a lot of people get stuck because instead of being curious about what jealousy is trying to show them, they usually do one of two things. Either they blame themselves for having feelings, for having emotions, or they blame their partner and try to control the outside world. But there is a third option. Listening to the feeling, listening to the fear underneath it, listening to the need that hasn't been had words put to it yet. Because a lot of times jealousy is less about what's wrong out there and more about what inside of you wants and needs care. And this is one of the biggest misconceptions that I see, especially in non-monogamy, is that people think boundaries are rules you make for someone else. Like you can't do that. You need to stop. You have to make me feel better. You need to change so that I can calm down. And look, like, I get why people go there. Usually it's not because they're evil or controlling or mean. It's because they're scared. They're activated. Their nervous system's activated. They feel out of control and they don't know what to do with the feeling. And they're trying to create safety in the only way they know how, by controlling the world outside of them. But boundaries are not about controlling someone else, right? They're about knowing yourself. So a boundary might sound more like, what feels okay for me, right? How do you find it? What feels okay for me? What do I need in order to feel safe? What am I available for? What am I not willing to override in myself anymore? And that's a very different energy, right? Because now we're not managing another adult. We're telling the truth about ourselves. We're speaking up for ourselves. So that might look like needing more communication before a major change happens, or needing aftercare after a hard emotional experience, or needing slower pacing, or time alone to regulate, or needing honesty about your actual capacity, or needing to say, I'm not ready for that yet, right? So for example, instead of you can't sleep at their place, it might look like, I'm noticing overnights bring up a lot for me right now, and I'd like more communication and reassurance as we navigate that, please. Feel the difference there? Another one is, instead of, hey, you got to text me the whole time you're out. Keep checking in. It could sound more like, I realize I feel a lot more grounded when I know when I can expect to hear from you. Like, can we create something that supports both of us around this, right? So instead of pretending to be cool with something that you're not actually cool with, you might say, like, I'm not ready for that level of openness yet, and I need to go slower. That one can be really hard to say. Actually, all of these can be really hard to say, because a lot of people have learned that having needs makes them difficult. I don't know if that resonates for you, but needs are not the problem, okay? Silencing yourself is usually what creates the problem, right? One path is control, and the other is self-awareness and honesty, and communication. And these are things that matter a lot in non-monogamy, in relationships, right? But there's so much pressure to, like, just be chill, be cool, be evolved, move fast, never feel jealous, prove that you're okay with everything. But rushing yourself, it doesn't actually create growth, right? If you're like holding on so tight and white knuckling yourself through pain, that is not healing, that is not growing. There's a lot of self-abandonment there, actually. And sometimes the most secure thing that you can do, the most emotionally mature thing you can do, is say, actually, this doesn't feel good for me right now. This pace doesn't work for me. I need more support than I thought, right? Just speaking up for yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a very wise thing to do. Okay, let's be real. For a lot of us, boundaries don't feel very empowering at first, actually, right? They feel kind of terrifying. Boundaries can bring up some deep, tender fears, and some guilt, right? But fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of disappointing someone, fear of being too much, fear of being hard to love, fear of losing the relationship altogether, fear of losing love, losing connection. So instead of saying what you need, a lot of people just learn to shapeshift and mold themselves to fit into what they think will keep them that connection. So you tell yourself, like, it's fine, I'm fine, it's totally fine, when it absolutely is not fine. And you agree to things that your body is already tight and contracted around, or you stay quiet because you don't want to rock the boat, right? You start walking on eggshells, right? You're trying to be cool, you're trying to be so easy, like the low maintenance partner, the one who never needs anything. I'm speaking from experience here, right? And that role, being that way, can be really freaking expensive, because later you're spiraling. You're resentful. You're hyper aware of every little shift in tone, timing, the energy, the vibes, right? You're overanalyzing everything that they do. And it's not because you're irrational or dramatic or broken, right? Because something real inside of you is being ignored. And now it's trying to get your attention. And a lot of us learned really early that love came with conditions. Most of us have learned that, right? Maybe love meant being easy or not taking up too much space. Maybe your needs were treated like they were freaking inconvenient. Maybe conflict felt like disconnection or punishment or withdrawal. And now, as an adult, speaking up feels dangerous. Even if logically you know you're allowed to have needs, you're allowed to have emotions, even if your current partner is not the person or people who hurt you, and they're very lovely, your body can hold on to these things. It can still remember. And that's why jealousy is often the messenger, right? Because the things that you won't say directly, what you've been trained to swallow down, what you keep trying to override, your body will eventually say it louder. And that resentment, that shutdown, that sudden spiral over a little tiny thing, a lot of the time that's your unmet needs piling up in the background, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? It's like the self-abandonment is catching up with you. There's some grief maybe asking to be felt, and jealousy becomes the emotion that's like carrying all of it or housing all of it. So if jealousy keeps showing up, sometimes the question isn't, how do I get rid of this feeling? Sometimes the question is, what truth have I been afraid to tell? Where have I not been speaking up? So here's something I want you to try the next time jealousy shows up. Instead of immediately going, how do I make this go away? How do I stop feeling like this? How do I become less reactive? How do I be a better person? Try asking a different question. Ask yourself, what might this feeling be asking me to honor? That question can change everything, because now you're not treating jealousy like an enemy on the inside, right? You're treating it like information. You're getting curious instead of feeling ashamed. And you're listening instead of attacking yourself. So maybe the answer is like, do I need reassurance right now? Do I need clarity around what's happening? Do I need rest because my nervous system is just fried? Do I need to speak up about something that I haven't been talking about? Am I saying yes when my body means maybe or no or not yet? Am I overriding myself to seem easy and cool, evolved, low maintenance? Right? That one gets a lot of people. For example, if you feel jealous when your partner talks about someone else, maybe what you need isn't to shut the conversation down. Maybe you need some reassurance or quality time. Maybe you need to know your connection still matters. If you feel jealous when plans change suddenly, maybe the real need is actually consistency, right? Maybe you need clearer communication. Maybe your body needs more predictability than you've been admitting or allowing. If you feel jealous when you're watching things move really fast, maybe you don't need to catch up. Maybe you need pacing that actually works for your nervous system. Maybe you need time. Maybe you need to stop pretending that speed equals growth. Because I tell y'all all the time, slow the fuck down, right? Jealousy is not trying to ruin your day. It's not trying to sabotage your relationship. It's not always trying to sabotage your relationship. Sometimes it's trying to guide you back towards yourself, towards what is true for you, back to your body, back to your nervous system, back to the needs that you've been minimizing, and back to the boundaries that you've been negotiating against yourself, right? A lot of people think jealousy means they need to become less needy, but honestly, a lot of the time, jealousy is asking you to become more needy, more honest about what you feel, more honest about what you need, more honest about what isn't working for you anymore or ever. And when you are honest in that way, that's where you start building security, actually. And this is the exact kind of work that we do in Beyond Jealousy, my group program for y'all. Because jealousy usually doesn't disappear just because you understand it intellectually. Listening to the podcast isn't going to make the jealousy disappear. Reading the book is not going to make the jealousy disappear. A lot of people know why they're triggered. Most of us do. We know that it comes from our childhood wounds. We know it's attachment stuff. We know it's comparison or fear. And yet we're still spiraling, right? Because the insight is really powerful, but insight alone doesn't create changes. The real shift happens when you learn how to identify what's actually underneath the jealousy, how to honor your needs without freaking drowning in shame, and how to communicate clearly instead of exploding or shutting down. And even more importantly, how to soothe your nervous system, how to regulate your nervous system when you're activated. Stop abandoning yourself in the name of love. Build security from the inside out, because that is where true freedom and security lives. Not in becoming someone who never feels jealous, but by becoming someone who knows how to meet it differently in a really healthy way, someone who trusts themselves inside of it, someone who doesn't lose themselves every time it shows up. So if this episode hit home for you, if you're tired of jealousy running the show, the link to Beyond Jealousy is in the show notes, or you can go to my website, aliciapayne.com/jealousy. And as always, like, take what resonates for you, leave the rest. Your relationships are unique. Your needs matter. Your healing gets to be personal and yours, and your path gets to look like your path. It doesn't have to look like mine or anybody else's, right? And, if this episode helped you feel a little more seen, I'd love it if you subscribe or leave a review or a comment or share it with someone who needs to hear it. That helps more people find the show. It helps me keep having these conversations. It helps you communicate with other people the things that are right for you, right? If you're not sure how to bring up the conversation, send them this episode. Thanks for being here. I adore you. Bye.